Hachiman is lonely loser who has no goals and holes. But one day, he is dragged into a service club with the school's most hottest girl who don't want his joystick. But living together, he tries everything, get a private session with her. The story kicks off when Hachiman walks into the teacher's office, where Shizuka reads the essay he turned in. The second she sees it, she gets furious enough to KO him instantly. Instead, she drags him into an unused classroom, and that's where he meets Yukino, the smartest cute girl from Class G, the top section of the school. Shizuka explains that Hachiman has to join Yukino's club as punishment for writing something useless, and also because of his useless attitude. But I think guys, his face is more useless than his attitude.
Emotional damage!
Yukino, unimpressed, doesn't want him around at first, but after Shizuka insists, she finally agrees to let him stay, though it's clear she's not exactly happy about it. Once Shizuka leaves, Yukino calmly explains that this is the service club, and he should actually feel lucky she's letting him in at all. Hachiman, of course, starts bragging about himself, but Yukino cuts him down right away, saying his fragile ego is exactly why he has no girlfriend, and no one likes him. She tells him straight up that if he wants to change that, he should start with his personality. Just then, Shizuka walks back in, and Hachiman questions why everyone keeps trying to change him when he says long joystick.
What? I don't believe it!
Sorry guys, I mean, he perfectly fine the way he island. Their disagreement quickly heats up, so Shizuka steps in and proposes a challenge. Whoever takes on the most volunteer work wins, and the loser must grant 3 wishes to the winner. The next day, Hachiman shows up at the club room, where Yukino sits alone. He asks why someone with her looks and charm has no friends. Yukino admits she was bullied by jealous girls since boys liked her, and though Hachiman sees an opportunity and offers her to become his girlfriend, she refuses without a second thought. Suddenly, a cheerful girl named Yui bursts into the club room, but the moment her eyes land on Hachiman, she's instantly put off by his gloomy face. Yukino politely invites her to sit, and as Yui watches the two bicker, she finds it oddly entertaining and even joins in by throwing a few playful insults herself. Not long after, Yui admits she wants to practice baking cookies to impress someone she likes, but since she isn't very skilled, she asks the club for help. Yukino agrees to guide her, and after multiple attempts mixed with Yukino's sharp advice, Yui slowly improves. Still, her cookies turn out almost useless, just like some of you guys. And she begins doubting herself. That's when Hachiman steps in and tells her a street dog can make a better cookie than his cookie. His words spark a new mindset in Yui, and she decides to rely on her own style, instead of leaning completely on Yukino. A week later, she returns proudly carrying a bag of cookies. While chatting with Yukino, Hachiman slips away to give them privacy, but Yui chases after him with a small bag just for him. Inside, he finds a burnt heart-shaped cookie. Even though it tastes terrible, he eats it anyway. The following day, while the rest of his classmates hang out in their little groups, Hachiman sits by himself in a corner, scribbling another useless essay. He thinks people who rely on groups are weak, and he wants to be like a top G, who is strong, rich, and have lots of baddies without depending on anyone.
I'm top G.
Later, he hands the useless essay to Shizuka, who isn't impressed at all by his masculine attitude toward peoples. When Hachiman points out that she also avoids groups, and became a female version of Top G, she responds by giving him KO instantly. After recovering, he asks about his ongoing contest with Yukino, but Shizuka says she'll wait until more progress is made before making a judgment. She then comments that both he and Yukino are so stubborn that she worries how they'll manage in the real world. At lunch, Hachiman eats alone in class since it's raining outside. Across the room, he notices his classmates chatting, including Yumiko, the leader of the group, and Hayato, the popular guy. Yui is also standing there, clearly nervous. When Yumiko asks her to grab a drink, Yui replies that she'll be busy the entire break. Annoyed, Yumiko complains that Yui hasn't been spending time with them lately. She pressures Yui to speak honestly, but Yui freezes up and quietly says it's personal, leaving her on the verge of tears. Hachiman pretends not to care just like a top G, yet deep down, he feels she needs someone like a top G to step in. He finally stands, ready to help, but when Yumiko warns him to butt out, he loses confidence, quickly becoming bottom G and quietly sits back down. Right then, Yukino walks into the classroom and immediately scolds Yui for keeping her waiting so long. She reminds her that a quick text would have solved the problem. Yui quietly explains that she doesn't even have Yukino's number, which makes Yukino pause and realize it's not entirely Yui's fault. She softens up and apologizes. This, however, annoys Yumiko, who had been trying to talk with Yui. When Yumiko complains about being interrupted, Yukino calmly points out that it wasn't really a conversation, more like her forcing her opinions on Yui. She bluntly calls her a joker, trying to act like a queen, and this not set of Games of Thrones. Before it escalates, Hayato quickly steps in and tells both girls to relax. Yukino then asks Yui to finish what she needs to do and meet her later. After Yukino leaves, the tension lingers, and one by one the other students slip out to avoid the awkwardness. Hachiman decides to follow them, but just as he's walking away, Yui quietly thanks him for standing up for her earlier. Even though he didn't say anything, she noticed and appreciated it. Yui then faces Yumiko directly and admits she has a hard time fitting in. She's been forcing herself to keep up with everyone, but it never feels natural. Yumiko brushes her off, checking her phone instead of listening, but Yui continues anyway. She says she admires how Yukino and Hachiman speak their minds without worrying about others, and she wants to be more like them. Outside the door, Yukino and Hachiman are secretly listening to every word. Finally, Yui admits she doesn't want to keep pretending, and hopes Yumiko can still be her friend without needing to act fake. To her surprise, Yumiko accepts. Hearing this, Yukino feels proud and walks off. Yui then leaves the class, spots Hachiman, and embarrassed that he overheard, calls him a stalker before quickly joining Yukino. After classes end, Hachiman spots Yukino and Yui standing outside the clubroom, sneaking peeks through the window. Curious, he approaches them, and they whisper that someone suspicious is inside. Taking charge like a top G, Hachiman steps in and is greeted by a guy who looks like a useless samurai. The stranger announces he's been waiting for Hachiman, but his over-the-top entrance is so embarrassing that Hachiman pretends not to know him. When the rambling continues, Hachiman finally calls him by name Zaimo and asks why he's there. Dressed in what looks like some useless samurai, Zaimo declares that Shizuka sent him and he's here to request their help. Yukino, already annoyed, asks if this guy escaped from an asylum, and Hachiman explains that he's suffering from DID. Apparently, back in middle school, Zaimo invented a samurai warlord persona and never dropped the act, even though everyone cringes when he talks. His imaginary shogun character even worshipped a god with the same surname as Hachiman, so now he insists that Hachiman must play along with his delusion. Hachiman admits he used to roleplay like this too, but unlike Zaimo, he eventually grew out of it. The problem is, Zaimo has finally realized this obsession is spiraling, and he wants the club's help to break free. While Yukino deals with his antics, Hachiman notices scattered papers around the room and picks them up. Zaimo reveals they're actually pages of a novel he's been working on and begs them to review it. He's too nervous to upload it online, claiming people on social media are useless, just like some of you. Hachiman, however, warns him that Yukino is even harsher than any social media character. On the way home, Zaimo keeps rambling non-stop about the characters in his novel and practicing his useless moves on road. But Hachiman isn't listening. His mind drifts back to a memory of a truck clapped a dog he once had. Later that night, both he and Yukino go through Zaimo's manuscript, while Yui spends her evening laughing at a comedy show on TV. The following day, Hachiman runs into Yui in the school parking lot. She notices how exhausted he looks, and he admits it's because he playing with a baddie and had win streak of 10-0. Sorry guys, I mean he stayed up reading that useless novel. He then jokingly asks why she looks so fresh if she supposedly read it too. Embarrassed, Yui quickly fakes being tired, but Hachiman easily sees through her bluff. Later, when he enters the clubroom, he finds Yukino asleep at her desk. He quietly walks up and praises her efforts, but the moment she wakes up, she immediately throws insults his way. Hachiman sighs, realizing once again that her angelic appearance hides a sharp tongue. After a while, Zaimo shows up, eager for feedback. Yukino starts politely, saying she isn't used to critiquing novels, but Zaimo insists she be honest. She doesn't hold back, and starts roasting him instantly, calling the story boring, difficult to read, and riddled with mistakes. She points out his grammar is sloppy just like 5th grader, the plot has holes, and the draft lacks a proper ending. Though clearly hurt, Zaimo asks for more details, listening as Yukino continues her roasting. Eventually, almost gets a heart attack by her words, he turns to Hachiman, hoping for something encouraging. Hachiman gives him a gentle smile, as if he's about to say something positive, only to ask which book he plagiarized it from. Zaimo collapses dramatically, rolling on the floor from the brutal roasting. Before leaving, Zaimo asks if they'll check out his next piece, which makes Hachiman and Yukino wonder if he secretly enjoys being roasted. Still, Zamo admits that even though their criticism was harsh, having them read his work made him genuinely happy, and it motivated him to keep writing. He thanks them in his over-the-top samurai style before walking away, leaving Hachiman thinking about how much passion Zamo really has for storytelling. The next day at tennis practice, nobody wants to pair up with Hachiman, so he tells the coach he's not feeling well and asks to sit out. Left alone, he plays by hitting his own balls together. While doing that, he overhears a few classmates hyping up the school's popular boy, Hayato. One of them purposely smacks a ball toward Hachiman and orders him to return it, which irritates him since most of his classmates can't even remember his name. He feels more like a servant running errands than a teammate. Later, he eats lunch by himself outside, enjoying the salty breeze from the ocean nearby. He reflects on how the school is close to the beach and how the wind direction shifts around noon. While he's lost in thought, Yui finds him and asks why he's always sitting alone. Hachiman casually replies that this is his usual lunch spot, which surprises her since she doesn't understand how someone can prefer solitude. Curious, he asks why she's there, and Yui explains that she lost a bet to Yukino, and this is part of her punishment. Hachiman assumes the punishment is having to talk to him, but she clarifies that she was just on her way to buy drinks. Relieved that she might leave soon, he relaxes only for Yui to sit down beside him anyway. She chats about random things, even pointing out that though he and Yukino both dislike groups, when they talk together, it almost feels like they've formed one. Hachiman brushes it off, saying it's too complicated for her to understand because her mind is useless. Annoyed, Yui smacks him lightly and insists she's not as clueless as he thinks. Before their chat can go further, a guy walks up and greets Yui, asking how she's been. After exchanging a few words, he shifts his focus to Hachiman, saying he saw him practicing earlier and thought his form looked solid. Hachiman, completely clueless, doesn't even recognize him, something that shocks Yui since they've been classmates all along. The stranger introduces himself as Saika, but Hachiman immediately gets the wrong impression, thinking he's a girl. He blurts out that he doesn't hang around with girls, only to freeze when Saika clarifies he's actually a guy. Later, the two end up walking back to the tennis court together, and Hachiman starts feeling strangely nervous every time he glances at him, questioning his own feelings. I think guys, he must be thinking, who am I? Saika explains that his partner didn't show up today, and politely asks Hachiman to fill in. Hachiman is so eager to please him that he would have agreed to anything. After the practice session, Saika compliments he has very low stamina, sitting a little too close, which makes Hachiman flustered. He then admits the tennis club is struggling, with numbers dropping, and the future looking bleak once the seniors graduate. He believes Hachiman could be the one to help turn things around. Later, Hachiman brings this up with Yukino, hoping she'll approve. He imagines that joining the team could let him slowly back away from both clubs until he's finally free. But Yukino shuts that dream down quickly, saying he looks like he'd collapse just jogging because he has stamina of 10 seconds max, and wouldn't survive full-time tennis. She argues he'd probably be such a bad fit that his presence alone would push the team to kick him out, which still wouldn't fix their real problem. Though she's blunt, Hachiman realizes she's right. Still, he wonders if there's any way they can actually support Saika. Yukino raises an eyebrow at his sudden concern for someone else, but even she can't come up with an answer. Just then, Yui drags Saika into the clubroom, saying if he needs extra help, this is the place to find it. Yukino quickly reminds Yui she isn't even an official member, which surprises her. Embarrassed, Yui rushes off to submit an application. Meanwhile, Saika hands over a formal request, saying he wants to improve at tennis to inspire the rest of his team. Yukino accepts, and over the next few days, she works him hard in practice, Yui joining along for support. During one practice session, Saika slips and falls, but insists on continuing despite the pain. Seeing his stubbornness, Yukino assigns Yui to watch over him. Saika quietly starts worrying that Yukino has already given up on him since he isn't showing much improvement. Yui quickly reassures him, saying Yukino would never abandon someone who genuinely needs her support. At that moment, Yumiko and her useless group stroll onto the court, suggesting they should get to use it as well. Hachiman immediately steps up, arguing that Saika has special permission and no one else is allowed during this time. A small argument sparks between him and Yumiko until Hayato intervenes, proposing they all play together. Instead of letting it slide, Hachiman throws shade at Hayato, criticizing him too. Realizing he may have upset him, Hayato apologizes, but Hachiman doubles down, pointing out that Hayato already has plenty of baddies, so hogging Saika's court is unfair. Out of nowhere, Zymo jumps into back. I think guises he's inner samurai as wakes up again. Hachiman, fueling the tension further. Finally, Hayato drops his polite act and directly challenges Hachiman to a match. The winner gets exclusive use of the court during breaks, and also earns the chance to help Saika train. Yumiko chimes in with the idea to make it a mixed doubles match to spice things up. Yui instantly volunteers to partner with Saika, leaving Yumiko a bit irritated. When asked to reconsider, Yui stands her ground, proudly stating that her loyalty is to her club first. As the game begins, Yumiko scores the opening point, but Yui confidently reveals she actually used to play tennis back in middle school. As the match goes on, Hachiman and Yui drop the first set, thanks to Yumiko's sharp plays. To make things worse, Yui twists her ankle during the rally. Seeing her struggle, Hachiman tells her to stay in one spot and let him handle both opponents by himself. Though doubtful, Yui steps aside, and the others assume she's mad at him and walked off. Ignoring the comments, Hachiman focuses on the game, ready to fight alone. But soon Yui returns, this time with Yukino by her side. After hearing Yui's explanation, Yukino realizes they're short one player for the doubles match that decides who keeps the court. She calmly hands Saika a box of bandages, clarifying that she left earlier not because she was disappointed, but because she was concerned for his well-being. Then she turns to Yumiko and promises not to hold back, vowing to crush her confidence completely. The game resumes, and Yukino proves to be Yumiko's worst nightmare. With flawless serves, she dominates the court and single-handedly secures the set for their side. However, as the deciding set begins, Yukino admits her biggest weakness, low stamina. She tells Hachiman that she won't last through the final points, which is why she expects him to finish the match. She explains that she never flatters anyone, and if she says he's capable, she truly means it. Encouraged, Hachiman summons a quiet determination. Using his knowledge of the ocean breeze near the school, he serves in a way that manipulates the ball's path, catching their opponents off guard. For the match point, he launches the ball high, and after its first bounce, it sails over the fence. Yumiko lunges desperately to return it, but ends up crashing straight into Hayato instead. With that, Hachiman secures the victory for his team. Even though he won, the crowd still cheers for Hayato, who ended the game with a dramatic save. As Yukino helps Yui to the nurse's office, Saika approaches Hachiman with a warm smile, thanking him sincerely. Just that one look leaves Hachiman flustered and completely speechless. Hachiman later walks to the nurse's office to see how Yui is doing, but instead catches both Yui and Yukino changing inside. Without a second thought, Yui grabs a racket and smacks him across the face, sending him flying out the door. But I think guys, Hachiman is happy because he watched the live stream of plot armors. A few days later, his sister Komachi is lying on the couch flipping through a love story magazine. Hachiman tells her it's time to get ready for school. Annoyed, she jumps up and throws her clothes at him so she doesn't have to look at him. After picking up the mess, he goes outside and finds her waiting by her bike. She says they'll ride together today and warns him not to get hurt again. Her words remind Hachiman of his very first day in high school. Back then, he saw a dog about to get hit by a car. He jumped out to save it, but ended up in the hospital for weeks. By the time he came back, everyone else already had friends, and he was left out. Komachi then mentions that the dog's owner came to see him and brought sweets, but since he was unconscious, she ate them all. She also says that the girl studies at his school now, but she doesn't remember her name, leaving Hachiman to guess. After dropping Komachi off, Hachiman goes to the teacher's office. Shizuka is there, reading his latest Another Useless Essay. This time, he wrote about wanting to be a stay-at-home husband. Tell in the comments guys why he wanted to be home husband, even though he's clearly single. Shizuka, upset that he hasn't changed, punches him hard for wasting her time, destroying his entire generations. After class, Shizuka tells Hachiman that he'll need to form a group of 3 for the school trip. The thought alone annoys him since he has no interest in teaming up with people he barely knows. Later, he stops by the clue room where Yukino is, as always, quietly reading a book. A moment later, Yui bursts in and immediately scolds him for disappearing. Yukino calmly explains that Hachiman hadn't shown up for a while, so Yui actually organized a little search party to find him. The funny part, nobody seemed to even know who he was. Yui is upset that she couldn't get in touch with him and, after a bit of hesitation, shyly asks if she can have his number so she can reach him outside the club. Hachiman doesn't make a big deal about it and casually hands over his phone, telling her to type her number in. Yui is caught off guard by how casually he hands it over, but quickly starts punching in the digits at lightning speed. When Hachiman comments on how fast she types, she teases him, saying he's probably dead, chatting Kara because he has no experience talking to girls. Hachiman, however, claims that back in the day, he actually is a playboy, and also had plenty of girls around and even used to text one often. The twist: that girl was Yukino herself. Yui, not realizing it, is surprised, but Yukino cuts in to reveal the truth that she used to lie about going to sleep early just to avoid replying to him. This sparks a brief back and forth between the two, and Yukino warns Yui to be careful, joking that Hachiman is the type to send weird late-night videos to her phone. While the three are still talking, Hayato steps into the club room and explains that Shizuka sent him because he needs their help. He reveals that strange, anonymous messages have been spreading through the school, targeting him and his group of friends. Yui admits she's been receiving them too. Instead of wanting to expose the sender, Hayato says he'd rather settle things peacefully, which instantly frustrates Hachiman. Hachiman vents that Hayato is the type who, because he's content with his own life, tries to keep everyone else satisfied as well. He finds that attitude irritating, especially since it clashes with his own gloomy outlook. Even so, Hachiman says he has no interest in catching the culprit. Yukino disagrees, insisting that tracking down the sender is the only real solution, and coldly promises she'll crush whoever is responsible. Her words leave Hayato uneasy. She asks if either of them noticed anything unusual in class, but both Hayato and Yui shake their heads, saying nothing seemed out of place. At that moment, Hachiman recalls what Shizuka mentioned earlier about the upcoming group project, and he starts wondering if the cryptic messages are connected to that. As they discuss, Yui suggests that since students need to form groups of 3, maybe the sender is afraid of being excluded and is trying to create chaos to avoid rejection. Hachiman nods, saying that idea makes sense, but Hayato points out that the texts weren't aimed at just one person. They targeted all 3 of them. Hachiman then reasons that the goal is probably to confuse everyone, making it difficult to identify who's really behind it. Yukino narrows her eyes and calmly asks Hayato to share more about his close friends, Tobe, Yamato, and Yuka. Since Hayato always chooses to see the good in people, he doesn't provide much useful information. Yukino quickly loses patience and tells Yui to do some light investigating on her own. Yui looks uneasy because digging into others' business could hurt her image, but Hachiman volunteers instead, pointing out he already has a bad reputation so it won't matter. His words inspire Yui to join in as well, since she doesn't want to disappoint Yukino. Later that day, Yui approaches Hachiman and says she's going to ask the girls directly about their thoughts on Hayato's friend. Hachiman gives her the go-ahead, so she casually starts a conversation with Yumiko and Hina, trying to slip in questions about Yuka, Tobe, and Yamato. Her sudden curiosity catches them off guard. Yumiko assumes Yui has a crush, but when she denies it, Hina gets overly excited and blurts out embarrassing details, completely missing the point. Horrified, Yui runs back to the club room and admits she failed badly. Hachiman tells her she came on too strong and decides to quietly observe Hayato's circle himself. While he's watching, Saika suddenly appears, making Hachiman flustered. Saika asks if Hachiman has already chosen a group for the school trip, revealing he already has his own set. Hachiman isn't shocked since Saika knows many students through the tennis club. He admits he hasn't picked anyone because he doesn't have friends. Saika then offers to be his friend, leaving Hachiman questioning what true friendship really means. For the first time, he addresses Saika by name, which makes him smile brightly. Saika then calls Hachiman by his name too, and the moment feels surprisingly warm for him. Just then, Hayato arrives and asks if Hachiman has figured anything out. After quietly watching Yuka, Tobe, and Yamato, Hachiman calls a meeting with the club. He explains that the 3 aren't actually close friends. What bonds them is simply their admiration for Hayato. When Yukino asks how they should handle things, Hachiman gives a small grin and suggests that Hayato distance himself so the 3 can learn to bond without leaning on him. Hayato agrees and later mentions to Hachiman how surprised Yuka, Tobe, and Yamato were when he told them he wouldn't team up with them. Still, he hopes this will push them to grow. He then casually invites Hachiman to partner with him. At that moment, Saika shows up, saying he'll join them as well. For a brief second, Hachiman thinks maybe this odd trio could actually work together. The following day, Hachiman strolls into class after the bell rings and jokingly claims he's fashionably late. He argues that even heroes and the police always show up late, so it's fine. Shizuka, already tired of his excuses, responds by punching him straight in the face. While he's still sprawled on the floor, A new student walks in, a silver-haired girl named Saki, which is too hot to handle. Even guys, I have to do whole editing with my one hand. She glances at Hachiman lying there, calls him an idiot without hesitation, and then takes a seat by the window, ignoring him completely. After school, Hachiman notices Saki signing up for extra summer classes, though she walks away looking frustrated after letting out a sigh. Later, he spots Yukino, Yui, and Saika hanging out together at a cafe, playing a trivia game. Deciding to Hachiman joins them. Saika casually asks if he came to study with them, which makes Hachiman realize the girls hadn't actually invited him. It dawns on him that he's just intruding. Yui then notices the paper he's carrying, and Hachiman explains its information about summer prep courses. He mentions he's hoping for a scholarship since he doesn't have much money and wants to get ahead. Just then, his sister Komachi shows up with a boy, and they all sit down together. After Komachi introduces herself, the boy explains his name is Taishi and that he attends the same cram school as her. He goes on to mention that his older sister also studies at their high school, and that sister happens to be Saki. Everyone at the table immediately acknowledges that Saki gives off an intimidating presence. They agree she isn't very approachable, and Taishi admits she's been acting like a delinquent lately. He explains that she used to be sweet, but since starting high school, she's changed, coming home late at night, sometimes even in the early morning. Worried, he asks the club members to help her since Hachiman is in her class and can keep an eye on her. Yukino listens carefully and agrees that supporting Saki would fit with the service club's purpose. Later, during a club meeting, she suggests trying to help Saki through animal therapy, hoping it might ease her mood and encourage her to open up. The club comes up with a plan. They place a stray kitten in a box outside the school, hoping that Saki will stop and take care of it. Yukino tells everyone to spread out so it doesn't look suspicious. Once the others leave, however, she kneels down and starts petting the cat herself. Hachiman quietly walks up behind her and asks what she's doing. Instead of blushing, Yukino coldly tells him to go away. Just then, Hachiman gets a call from Taishi. He nervously explains that the plan won't work because his sister is allergic to cats. Realizing the idea is useless, they turn to Shizuka for direct help. Later, they watch from a safe distance as Shizuka approaches Saki after school. She asks why she's been coming home so late. Saki shrugs, saying it doesn't concern anyone else, and she isn't hurting anybody by staying out. Shizuka warns her that if she keeps it up, she'll gain a bad reputation, and her parents won't be happy about it. Saki, clearly annoyed, snaps back that Shizuka doesn't understand what it means to be a parent since she's unmarried and has no children of her own. The blunt words cut deep, and Shizuka is left stunned. Fighting back tears, she walks away, looking completely defeated. During their discussion on how to reach Saki, Yui suggests trying kindness instead of force. Later that day, while Saki is in the parking lot preparing to head home, the group sends Hayato over to greet her. She brushes him off immediately and starts walking away. Desperate, Hayato puts on his best confident face and tries to charm her with a one-liner, but even that falls flat. Saki doesn't budge, and he returns to the group empty-handed. Hachiman can't help but laugh at his failure. Just then, Komachi calls Hachiman with new information. She says Taishi got a strange phone call from a shop owner, and when they trace the number, it narrows down to two possible locations. The first is a maid cafe. Since none of them have ever been to one, Hachiman brings along Zymo to blend in. The guys head inside while the girls wait outside. Soon after, Yui appears dressed in a maid outfit, which leaves Hachiman staring in shock. Zymo, however, says she doesn't have the true spirit of a maid, and jokes that Saika would fit the role better. Moments later, Yukino also walks in wearing a maid uniform. She quickly checks the employee chart and announces that Saki's name isn't on the list, meaning she doesn't work there. That leaves only the second location, a hotel bar on the top floor of a tall building. Because of the formal dress code, Hachiman, Yui, and Yukino change into their best clothes before heading inside. They ride the elevator up and are greeted by a stylish lounge filled with polished decor. Behind the counter, serving drinks, is none other than Saki. Her outfit and surroundings are so different that she doesn't recognize them at first. After a brief introduction, she finally realizes who they are. Saki looks at the group and sarcastically asks if the girls are on some kind of triple date, with Mr. Loserface tagging along. Without hesitation, Yukino snaps back that she wouldn't even consider dating Hachiman in her worst nightmares. Trying to stay focused, Hachiman tells Saki that her brother is worried about her late nights. Saki, however, firmly tells him to mind his own business. Yukino looks Saki straight in the eye and warns her that time is running out. She's still too young to be working shifts this late at night, which means she must have lied about her age. Yui then gently asks why she's risking so much for a single part-time job. After hesitating, Saki admits that she desperately needs money. Yukino says she can sympathize, but insists that this path isn't the right one. Saki, however, snaps back, reminding her that she comes from a wealthy family and can't possibly understand what it feels like to struggle. The air between them turns tense, and it looks like the argument could explode at any moment. Hachiman quickly steps in and suggests they leave before things get worse. As Yui and Yukino head out, Hachiman lingers behind. He quietly asks Saki if she could spare him a few minutes once her shift ends. After a brief pause, she nods and agrees. The next morning, Saki walks into the cafe and is surprised to see the entire service club waiting for her, along with her brother Taishi and Komachi. Hachiman decides to speak first, guessing the real reason behind her part-time job. He turns to Taishi and explains that, like him, Saki wants to enroll in extra summer classes. Saki admits this is true, adding that her dream is to enter college on a scholarship, so she won't add more pressure on their parents. Komachi then shares her own perspective. She explains that since both of their parents work late, Taishi often ends up alone at home. But lately, Hachiman has been making sure to come back earlier than her, just so Komachi doesn't have to be by herself. Komachi points out that Saki, in trying not to trouble her parents, has unknowingly placed that weight on Taishi by keeping a late-night job. As the younger sibling herself, Komachi says she understands how heavy that can feel. Hearing this, Saki finally realizes the impact of her actions. The others step back, allowing the siblings to talk things through on their own. Later that day, Hachiman and Komachi walk home together. Komachi casually mentions she didn't know he was friends with the girl who once brought him sweets at the hospital. Then, she reveals the surprising truth that the girl was actually Yui. Hachiman is left stunned, piecing together the connection. A few days later, the school goes ahead with the observation trip. Once the tour wraps up, Hachiman decides to wander off alone. Before long, Yui finds him and explains that the others went to eat, but she stayed behind to wait for him. Hachiman coldly tells her that she doesn't need to worry just because he once saved her dog. He's terrible at dealing with people anyway. His words shock Yui, who quietly says that's not the reason she cares. When he doesn't reply, her eyes well up with tears. She calls him a jerk and runs off to join the others, forcing a smile to hide how upset she feels. Left behind, Hachiman mutters to himself about how much he dislikes nice girls. Talking to someone kind makes his heart beat faster, but he reminds himself that girls like Yui are kind to everyone, so there's no reason for him to fall for her. What he doesn't know is that Yui doesn't see him the same way she sees the others. A week later, Yui takes an early morning walk with her dog, her mind replaying their conversation. The following day, the two run into each other at their lockers, and the awkward tension is obvious. After she leaves, Hachiman enters class and spots Yui chatting with Yumiko's group. Relieved, he convinces himself that she's finally free of her guilt and believes they can now move on as if nothing happened. Later, in the club room, Yukino asks if something went down between him and Yui. Hachiman brushes it off, saying nothing happened. Yukino, however, points out that Yui hasn't come to the club in a week. When pressed further, he insists he was never close enough to Yui to even argue with her. Yukino guesses they must have had a falling out, but Hachiman stays quiet. Just then, Shizuka walks in and immediately notices Yui's absence. She sits next to Hachiman and announces she's thinking of turning their little duel into a larger competition. Since there are only 2 active members, she tells them to find more recruits, so the club can become a proper support space for loners. Yukino argues they already have 3, counting Yui, but Shizuka cuts her off, saying Yui clearly isn't motivated and might as well quit. Hachiman tries to claim he has no motivation either and wants to resign, but Shizuka cracks her knuckles, like a UFC fighter, scaring him into staying. Finally, she orders them to bring in at least 1 new member by Monday. Yukino then proposes re-recruiting Yui, since according to Shizuka, she's no longer official. Hachiman assumes Yui has no interest in returning to the service club. After all, if she wanted to stay, she never would have left. Yukino, however, has a different plan. With Yui's birthday approaching, she suggests doing something special for her. Nervously, she stumbles over her words before asking Hachiman if he would go shopping with her to pick out a gift. The question catches him completely off guard, but Hachiman, being the awkward guy he is, immediately drags his sister Komachi along, so it won't feel like an actual date. The 3 of them head to the shopping district. At first, Hachiman and Yukino think it's best to split up to cover more stores quickly. Komachi, however, insists they should all stick together, saying teamwork is the smarter option. Reluctantly, they agree. As they browse, Komachi suddenly disappears. When Hachiman calls her, she casually says she's off buying a few things for herself. But guys, I think the truth is she is busy with her boyfriend, taking clapping sessions with her sorry guy. The real truth, though, is that she intentionally left her brother alone with Yukino, so the two could spend more time together. She even tells him over the phone that she won't be back for several hours, leaving Hachiman frustrated and embarrassed at her scheming. When Hachiman explains the situation, Yukino doesn't blame Komachi, saying it was unfair to drag her along on her day off in the first place. She shrugs it off and heads into a clothing shop. Inside, Hachiman notices several women staring at him like he doesn't belong. Yukino points out that guys rarely wander into this section, so the looks aren't surprising. When he decides to wait outside, she tells him not to depend on her, adding that her standards are much higher than what's expected from a normal high school girl. Since he clearly stands out, she suggests he pretend to be her boyfriend for the day to make things easier. Hachiman tries to act calm, though inside he's flustered, but Yukino immediately cuts him down to size with her sharp words. Meanwhile, Yui takes her dog to the vet for grooming. Sitting there, she realizes how distant she's become from both Hachiman and Yukino. Her thoughts are interrupted when she notices her dog has gone missing. Back at the shops, Hachiman and Yukino struggle to pick a gift because she keeps rejecting every idea as not good enough. After some thought, they finally decide that simple, comfortable clothes that match Yui's style would be the best choice. Just as they finish shopping, Yukino's older sister Haruno suddenly appears. Seeing them together, she playfully assumes it's a date. Both immediately deny it, but she continues teasing, even joking that Hachiman should just marry Yukino so they can all become family. Before leaving, she warmly invites him to dinner. After she's gone, Hachiman mutters that Haruno's cheerful personality feels more like a mask than her true self. Moments later, a dog runs toward them out of nowhere, and Yukino is so startled that she instinctively clings to Hachiman for comfort. The dog leaps onto Hachiman's lap, wagging its tail and demanding attention. As he tries to figure out where it came from, Yui suddenly arrives and freezes at the sight. To her, it looks like she's walked in on a date, and embarrassed, she turns to leave. Before she can go, Yukino gently calls her back and asks her to visit the service club on Monday so they can talk things out. When Monday arrives, Yui enters the clubroom, still thinking she's about to hear that Hachiman and Yukino are secretly together. Seeing both girls struggling to communicate, Hachiman decides to step in. He clears up the misunderstanding by bluntly stating that he and Yukino are not dating. The atmosphere relaxes a little. Yukino then thanks Yui for everything she's done and gives her a birthday present, instantly lifting Yui's spirits. Hachiman also offers her a gift and recalls their time during the workplace visit, telling her he hopes she can let go of the past and stop blaming herself. Yui admits the situation feels complicated, but Yukino firmly says that she never pitied Hachiman, and he never acted for her sake alone. Yui tears up, confessing she doesn't want their bond to break. Yukino softly reminds her that the end of one stage can be the start of another. After Yukino leaves, Hachiman stays behind to watch Yui open his gift. She beams when she finds a collar inside and slips it on herself, only to realize it was meant for her dog. Annoyed, she calls him an idiot before leaving, though she lingers at the door with a smile, happy that things feel normal again. After she goes, Hachiman picks up Yukino's book and reflects quietly on her words. When summer break begins, he spends his time gaming until Shizuka starts flooding his phone with texts and emails. At first, he ignores her girlfriend, which means guys nothing existed, planning to lie later about his battery being dead, a trick he learned from how other girls treated him. But Shizuka doesn't let up, and eventually, he reads through her endless messages, realizing exactly why she's still single. Soon after, Komachi bursts into his room, excited because she finished her summer homework early. As a reward, she demands he take her to Chiba. Hachiman barely looks up from his game, saying he has no money to buy her anything. Komachi laughs it off, insisting she doesn't want gifts just to spend time together. Finally, he agrees, but only if she stops dressing like she's around her boyfriend. After changing clothes and heading to the station, Hachiman and Komachi unexpectedly bump into Shizuka. She asks why he hasn't been answering her calls, then casually reveals she asked Komachi to bring him here so she could corner him in person. Hachiman tries to escape by saying he's heading to Chiba, but Shizuka cuts him off and says the trip already includes everyone. To make matters worse, Yui and Yukino soon show up as well. His mood sinks instantly, though he perks up a little when he finds out the rest of the group is coming too. After several hours on the road, they reach the lodge. Hachiman remembers visiting the same area years ago for a nature program. Another car pulls up, and Hayato arrives with his friends. Shizuka explains that they'll all be volunteering at the camp. Later, the volunteers are introduced to the children participating. Hayato takes charge right away, while Hachiman and Yukino mutter that bringing his group might cause problems since they don't get along well. Shizuka ignores them, ordering everyone to cooperate. They then guide the kids into the forest. Hayato quickly earns admiration when he saves a group of girls from a snake. Soon after, he notices a quiet girl standing alone. She doesn't blend with the others, reminding Hachiman of himself. When she drifts away from the group again, Hayato approaches and asks her name. She introduces herself as Rumi. Hayato invites her to help him find the next checkpoint. Watching from a distance, Hachiman is impressed by Hayato's effort, but Yukino argues his approach isn't solving the problem. She's proven right when Hayato leaves Rumi back with the same girls she wanted to avoid. Later, the kids gather to cook. Shizuka divides chores between boys and girls. Hachiman jokes that she probably did it because she's still single and doesn't want anyone else dating before her. Despite the teasing, everyone works together and the atmosphere lightens. During the meal prep, Hayato checks in with Rumi, but other girls start whispering about her, making her uncomfortable. Feeling cornered, she walks away without saying anything. To most, it looks like she's being rude, but Hachiman recognizes it as her way of protecting herself from embarrassment. Rumi later joins Hachiman and Yukino, and they exchange a few words until Yui arrives. Yui gently asks why she isn't with the other kids. Rumi bluntly replies that the girls are annoying and she'd rather stay alone. Both Yukino and Yui urge her to give friendships a chance before it's too late. Instead of feeling encouraged, Rumi only looks more discouraged, quietly thinking she'll probably end up like Hachiman, isolated and left out. That evening, when the volunteers gather for dinner, Hayato brings up Rumi's situation. He says she's keeping to herself and insists they should encourage her to join the others. Yukino immediately interrupts, pointing out that Hayato doesn't actually understand what Rumi is going through. She then asks Shizuka if she can take the lead in helping her. Shizuka casually waves them off, saying they can handle it however they like, and leaves. The group then begins discussing possible ideas. Everyone throws out suggestions, though none of them sound particularly useful. Out of nowhere, Hina blurts out a bizarre idea, and Yumiko quickly pulls her away before she can embarrass herself further. As they leave, Yumiko mutters that Rumi probably deserves to be alone because she looks down on others. Yukino fires back, saying Yumiko is too shallow to grasp complicated feelings. The argument nearly explodes, but Hayato firmly tells Yumiko to stop, which angers her enough to storm off. Later that night, Hachiman is restless and steps outside for some air. To his surprise, he finds Yukino standing alone under the moonlight, softly humming to herself. He asks why she's out here so late. Yukino admits she argued with Yumiko again and needed space, so she came outside to clear her head. She explains that she genuinely wants to help Rumi, partly because Hayato keeps worrying about her. Hachiman asks why she's so concerned about Hayato, in particular. After a pause, Yukino reveals that they used to be close back in middle school. She adds that Hayato's father works as a legal advisor for her family's company, which tied their friendship more to obligation than choice. Yukino also confesses that her parents usually parade Haruno around as their perfect daughter, while she feels more like a second-rate substitute. Saying nothing more, Yukino slowly walks away, leaving Hachiman alone under the night sky. The next morning, Hachiman wakes up to find Saika leaning over him, which immediately makes him flustered. After pulling himself together, he gets ready to join the day's activities. Out of nowhere, Saika asks if he can have Hachiman's number so they can stay in touch. Up until now, Hachiman had only ever used his phone for alarms and browsing random things. So when he later receives his very first text from Saika, he's so overwhelmed that he nearly faints from excitement. At breakfast, Shizuka lays out the plan for their final day at camp. The volunteers will prepare a bonfire and organize a courage test for the children. Hearing this irritates Hachiman, who remembers how he had been excluded during a similar camp years ago. Spotting his sour expression, the group jokes that he'd be perfect to play the scary monster for the kids. Their teasing only makes him more annoyed. After eating, everyone heads out to collect wood for the bonfire. While the others work efficiently, Hachiman entertains himself by stacking logs like it's a giant Jenga game. By the time he finishes, the rest of the group is long gone. Later, he wanders down to the river to cool off, where he sees Yui and Komachi splashing around. Komachi proudly shows off her swimsuit and demands her brother compliment her, but he barely reacts. Annoyed, she pushes him to compliment Yui instead. Embarrassed, Hachiman mutters that the swimsuit looks good on her. Deep down, though, he finds Yui stunning and struggles to look away. She notices his gaze and shyly glances back at him. Before long, Yukino and Shizuka arrive. Hachiman jokingly remarks that Shizuka could be a best mommy milkers, earning himself a KO punch in the stomach. As if that wasn't enough, Yumiko passes by, locking eyes with Yukino. The glare makes Yukino self-conscious about her figure. Hachiman awkwardly tries to reassure her, saying her sister was also a late bloomer and she'll grow into it in time. Eventually, everyone joins the water games, while Hachiman sits off to the side. Rumi notices him alone and walks over. She asks why he isn't playing, and he admits he didn't bring a swimsuit. When he asks why she isn't joining the others, she quietly says they left her behind. Yui soon comes over and invites Rumi to play, but she refuses. She then asks Hachiman if he's ever had friends. He answers honestly, saying he's never been good at socializing. He tells her not to obsess over making friends because once school ends, most of those connections fade away anyway. Surprisingly, Yukino agrees with him, reinforcing the idea that sometimes solitude is easier than forcing bond. Yui shakes her head at Hachiman and Yukino, saying, real friendships can last beyond graduation. Hachiman calmly asks how many classmates she's still close to. When she admits only 2, he quickly points out that means less than 1% of her old class stayed in touch. He adds that numbers don't matter anyway. But Rumi cuts in to say her mother constantly pushes her to make friends. She even gave her a camera to capture memories with groups, though it's clear Rumi has already given up on trying. Seeing this, Hachiman walks off, quietly deciding to step in later and restore her confidence. That evening, it's time for the test of courage. The volunteers get into costume and debate what to do about Rumi's situation. Everyone suggests their own ideas until Hachiman finally speaks up. Instead of simply scaring the kids, he wants to expose the weak ties between the girls, forcing them to see the truth. Hayato dislikes the plan at first, but after Hachiman explains how painful fake friendships can be, he agrees to go along. During the event, Yumiko and Tobe act as bullies, cornering Rumi's group and creating tension. Soon, Hayato arrives and announces that only 3 of them can move forward, while the others must turn back. Instantly, the girls throw Rumi's name out first, then argue over who else should stay. Their shallow bonds are revealed for everyone to see. Just as Hachiman prepares to end the act and explain, Yui stops him, telling him to wait. That's when Rumi suddenly shines her camera light into the bullies' faces, creating an opening for her group to run away. The bold move surprises everyone, showing that Rumi found her own strength in the moment. Later that night, the bonfire blazes brightly, and the campers gather around. Shizuka and Yukino both commend Hachiman for his unusual strategy, admitting it worked better than they expected. Even Hayato gives him credit, wondering aloud if things might have been different between them had they gotten to know each other back in middle school. Hachiman doesn't reply much, but as he sits by the fire, he quietly takes in the warmth of the moment, feeling the rare sense of belonging. The next morning, while everyone gets ready to leave the camp, a sleek black limousine rolls up. Haruno steps out, greeting Yukino with her usual teasing remarks before turning to poke fun at Hachiman as well. She then casually mentions that their mother is waiting. Yukino's face hardens immediately, her dread is obvious, but she doesn't argue. Quietly, she climbs into the car beside her sister, and the vehicle pulls away. As the limo disappears down the road, both Hachiman and Yui realize it's the same car that once hit him when he tried to save her dog. Yui starts to bring it up, but Hachiman quickly cuts her off, pretending it's a memory he doesn't recall. Deep down, though, he knows he remembers every detail. With summer vacation nearing its end, Hachiman grows restless at home, bored with having nothing to do. To distract himself, he spends time with Yui's dog, which he and Komachi have been watching. Soon after, Yui arrives to pick up her pet. Komachi brightly suggests she come again to meet their parents, but Yui nervously declines. Wanting to show gratitude, Yui invites both Hachiman and Komachi to the upcoming fireworks festival. But Komachi, always scheming for her brother's love life, immediately declines on her own behalf. Instead, she slyly volunteers Hachiman to go with Yui, insisting he help her run through a shopping list beforehand. The list is suspiciously long, just enough to keep him out all day with Yui. Hachiman realizes she set him up but can't find a way to argue. On the night of the festival, Hachiman arrives at the station right on time. Yui shows up a little late, dressed so nicely that he doesn't even know how to look at her. To keep himself from getting flustered, he turns away and quietly mutters that she looks good. As they wait for the train, they keep sneaking glances at each other, neither sure what to say until the train finally arrives. Once on board, they begin chatting casually. When the train suddenly jerks, Yui loses balance and leans against him. Both of them turn red, though Hachiman forces himself to stay expressionless. Inside, he admits that if not for his feelings being elsewhere, he could have easily fallen for Yui. When they arrive, Hachiman tries to brush things off, saying they're too early and should just head back, which upsets Yui. Eventually, they reach the festival grounds. Hachiman reminds himself over and over that Yui is just a kind person who treats everyone the same way, and he shouldn't mistake her warmth as something more. As they weave through the busy stalls, checking off items from Komachi's long shopping list, they bump into their classmate Minami and her friends. The girls tease Yui about walking around with Hachiman. Yui laughs it off and chats with them, but Hachiman notices the awkwardness. He knows if she had come with Hayato instead, the atmosphere would be completely different. Not wanting to embarrass her further, he slips away to buy her favorite food. When she finds him later, he offers candy apples, trying to lighten the mood. As the fireworks are about to start, the two search for a place to sit. Hachiman regrets not bringing a sheet for them to use. Yui is touched by the thoughtfulness and praises him, but he immediately ruins the moment with his usual self-deprecating remarks. While walking, they run into Haruno, who is attending on behalf of her father. She cheerfully invites them to the VIP area. From there, they watch the fireworks together, chatting about Yukino. Haruno teases them, joking about an affair behind Yukino's back. Hachiman quickly denies it, saying he isn't dating either of them. The conversation turns to Yui, and Haruno points out how she's always admired Yukino since childhood. Curious, Haruno asks what Yui really thinks of her friend. Yui answers sincerely, saying she loves Yukino because she's honest, kind, and unafraid to speak her mind. Haruno smirks and says that everyone is drawn to Yukino at first, but sooner or later, envy pushes them away. Yui immediately shakes her head and declares that she would never abandon Yukino, no matter what. When the fireworks end, Haruno offers them a ride in her limousine, casually adding that the car doesn't even show a scratch from the accident anymore. Both Hachiman and Yui freeze at her words. Even though Hachiman claims the past doesn't bother him, neither of them feels comfortable getting in. They politely refuse and choose to walk instead. On the way home, Yui asks if Yukino has ever mentioned the accident to him. Hachiman says no, explaining that it's likely something Yukino doesn't want to remember. Yui then suggests the idea of the three of them becoming closer, adding that she believes she and Hachiman would have still become friends even without the dog incident. Hachiman quietly doubts that, saying he isn't so sure. Just as Yui tries to open up more, her phone rings. She looks like she wants to continue, but Hachiman tells her to answer it. She runs off to take the call, leaving him behind. The next day, school resumes. On the stairs, Hachiman runs into Yukino. She mentions that Haruno already told her about meeting him and Yui at the festival. It looks like she's about to say something meaningful, but before she can, Hachiman interrupts and simply asks if the service club will continue. Yukino softly replies, yes, and the two walk away in opposite directions. As he leaves, Hachiman reflects on his own thoughts. He wants to believe Yukino is always straightforward and honest, but he knows deep down that's only the image he's chosen to cling to. Like anyone else, she can hide things, and realizing that makes him feel bitter for fooling himself. The following day, Yui enters the club room and immediately senses the tension. Both Hachiman and Yukino sit in silence, barely acknowledging her efforts to start a conversation. The heavy atmosphere makes it clear something is broken between them. Later that day, Shizuka calls on Hachiman and announces that he will serve as the boys' representative for the upcoming cultural festival. When it comes time to choose a girls' representative to work alongside Hachiman, the room falls into an awkward silence. None of the girls seem interested, likely because nobody wants to be paired with him. Breaking the tension, Minami jokingly nudges Yui, saying she should do it since she and Hachiman are already a couple. Caught off guard, Yui quickly denies it, her face turning red. Hayato then steps in to smooth things over. He explains that the role requires someone outgoing enough to attract attention, and Yui would be more useful working in sales. Turning to Minami, he suggests she take the position instead. At first, she refuses, but the moment Hayato presses a little further, she gives in and agrees. Later, all the chosen representatives gather for a committee meeting. The student council president, Meguri, goes over the festival plans and brings up the need for an executive to oversee the entire event. No one volunteers at first. Smiling gently, Meguri points out that Yukino's older sister Haruno had once handled the role perfectly, clearly hinting that Yukino should take it. Without hesitation, Yukino declines, saying she'll contribute as a regular member instead. After an uncomfortable pause, Minami raises her hand. Nervously, she offers to take on the responsibility if no one else will. She introduces herself to the group, explaining that she wants to challenge herself and grow through the experience. After the committee meeting ends, the service club gathers again. Yui tries to keep the mood light, chatting about how surprised she was to see Yukino involved earlier. Yukino answers in a flat, lifeless voice, showing no enthusiasm at all. The atmosphere grows heavier when she calmly states that the service club will be suspended for now, so they can focus on the cultural festival. Hachiman shrugs like it doesn't matter, while Yui just sits in silence, watching her two friends look like they've hit rock bottom. As Hachiman gets ready to leave, the door swings open and Minami enters with her friends. She explains that Shizuka told her the service club helps with student projects and asks if they can support her now that she's the festival executive. To Yui's shock, Yukino immediately agrees, despite having just suspended club activities. After Minami and her group leave, Yui turns to Yukino and asks why she accepted. Yukino explains that she's helping Minami as an individual, not as part of the club, and argues that she has the experience to handle it better this way. This only frustrates Yui. She storms out of the room, but Hachiman follows and finds her looking upset. When he asks what's wrong, Yui admits she doesn't like how different Yukino has been acting lately, and how quickly she jumped in to help Minami. After a pause, Yui quietly confesses that she cares about Yukino more than she realized. With a serious expression, she tells Hachiman to stay by Yukino's side and support her no matter what. Hachiman reluctantly agrees, though deep down he wants no part in it. At the next committee meeting, Hachiman sees Yukino take control of the room, while Minami struggles to keep up. Soon, whispers start spreading. People are saying Yukino is more suited to be executive, and that Minami is holding the team back. Minami hears it too, and the weight clearly starts crushing her confidence. Meanwhile, Hachiman's own class begins planning their festival activity. They settle on performing a play. Hina jumps in right away, clearly excited at the chance to stage her personal fantasy of pairing Hayato and Hachiman together. Not wanting to deal with it, Hachiman quickly excuses himself, saying he has committee work to focus on. In the hallway, he overhears Meguri asking Haruno if she'd consider performing at the festival. Haruno casually turns to Yukino for her opinion, but Yukino coldly replies that she should do whatever she wants. The temperature in the room drops until Minami arrives, and suddenly Haruno's tone flips into sweetness. She warmly asks Minami if she'll participate, and Minami quickly agrees, charmed by her. Afterward, Haruno strolls over to Hachiman, joking that she never imagined him being part of something like this. Hachiman shoots back that she probably didn't expect Yukino to be either. Haruno only smirks, saying that Yukino always ends up following in her footsteps, especially when it comes to leadership roles. Hachiman notices Haruno and Minami slowly shifting more and more of the workload onto Yukino. Days pass, and it becomes obvious that she's handling nearly everything on her own. One afternoon, Hayato drops by and finds Yukino working with Hachiman. He casually comments that she seems to be carrying all the responsibilities herself. Yukino brushes it off, saying it's more efficient this way. Hayato frowns, warning her that if she keeps refusing help, everything will collapse sooner or later. The following morning, Shizuka appears with an update. Yukino won't be attending because she's sick. Meanwhile, Hayato is busy rehearsing the class play with Saika in the lead role. Hina oversees their practice, demanding they put more energy into their lines. When they finally do, she gets so flustered that she ends up with a nosebleed and faints. Elsewhere, Minami rushes around pretending to be busy but contributes very little. Later, Yui receives a call from Hachiman, who informs her that Yukino isn't coming today. After school, the two decide to visit her place. To their surprise, they discover she lives in an upscale apartment building. They use the intercom to call her, but Yukino hesitates to let them in. Finally, after Hachiman bluntly tells her to stop acting distant, she reluctantly opens the door, looking worn out. Inside, they sit down, and Yui gently asks if she's feeling okay. Yukino insists she's fine. Her dismissive attitude frustrates Yui, who scolds both Yukino and Hachiman for failing to cooperate. Yukino claims she's been taking things slow, but Hachiman firmly tells her that her approach is wrong, and that she needs to start asking others for help. The tension lingers until Yui quietly says she just wishes Yukino would lean on them more instead of isolating herself. Yukino doesn't answer, only lowering her gaze. After a pause, she excuses herself and returns with tea for everyone. Hachiman drinks quickly, then gets up to leave, unable to stand the heavy atmosphere any longer. Yui, still worried, decides to follow Hachiman out. As she puts on her shoes, Yukino quietly tells her that one day, she'll understand how to lean on her. The next day, the committee gathers again to talk about slogans for the cultural festival. Minami suggests something vague about one for all, but Hachiman cuts in with sarcasm and rejects it. Instead, he tosses out his own idea. Minami writes the word friendship on the board, which makes Hachiman cringe so hard that she notices. She asks if he's always making ugly faces at her. Hachiman replies that he dislikes the word and instead suggests using the kanji for person, explaining how the character looks like two people leaning on each other. He adds that it's just like how some of the committee members dump their work on others, while still acting like victims. His blunt words spark glares from the group, but Yukino picks up on the meaning and even fakes a laugh to calm the mood. Shizuka then asks him to explain further, and Hachiman does so, openly pointing out how several members have been slacking. The atmosphere turns tense, and Yukino suggests ending the meeting and continuing tomorrow when everyone has fresh ideas. Afterward, Yukino catches Hachiman in the hallway. They share a few quick jokes about his unusual suggestion before she waves goodbye and walks off, leaving Hachiman smiling softly to himself. The following day, the committee finally agrees on a slogan and starts putting in real effort. Everyone contributes more seriously now, though Minami struggles to keep pace. Yukino steps in and takes charge, giving clear instructions that keep things moving smoothly. Later, Haruno approaches Hachiman. She teases him, saying his harsh comments made him the villain of the committee. Ironically, that label motivated everyone to work harder just to prove him wrong. Hachiman quietly thinks that Haruno's role might be the same. Her presence pushes Yukino to keep challenging herself. When the festival begins, Minami's lack of preparation becomes obvious. She stumbles badly through her opening speech, struggling to deliver her lines while the crowd watches. Later, Hachiman goes to check out Hina's class play. The moment he sees Saika performing on stage, he regrets walking out earlier. By the time it ends, the play is a surprising success, with the audience tearing up at the emotional finale. Afterward, Yui finds Hachiman at the information desk and brings him lunch. They sit together, but soon notice noise spreading through the hallways. Yukino appears with a group of students and quickly takes control of the situation, organizing everyone with ease. Watching her work, Yui begins talking about Yukino. She admits that she's decided to wait for her, but then turns to Hachiman and says not everything should be left to waiting. Sometimes it's better to take the first step. Hachiman blushes at her words, and Yui quickly changes the subject by opening the lunch she packed for him. The food turns out to be a honey toast. They both share it, enjoying every bite together. When Hachiman offers to repay her, Yui smiles and says it's not necessary. But when he insists, she cheekily hints that he could pay her back with a date instead. Her boldness catches him off guard, and he flusters as he realizes what she's asking. He awkwardly agrees, but when she asks for a day, he stalls, saying he'll tell her later. Meanwhile, Minami hides in the bathroom, overwhelmed by how little she's managed to contribute compared to Yukino. She locks herself inside, too embarrassed to face anyone. Elsewhere, Hachiman spends time filming the festival as part of his committee role. Komachi suddenly shows up and hugs him tightly from behind. Learning that her useless brother is actually doing something productive for once, she tears up with pride, leaving Hachiman both embarrassed and touched. After Komachi leaves in high spirits, Hachiman continues snapping photos around the festival. While adjusting his camera, his eyes meet Yukino's, and the two decide to walk together. Yukino mentions she's heading to the final committee meeting for the closing ceremony, so he joins her. They arrive at the auditorium just as Haruno performs on stage, her presence captivating the audience. Backstage, a committee member rushes over and explains that Minami is nowhere to be found. Yukino suggests replacing her, but the issue is that Minami alone has the final tally for the award votes. Without her, the ceremony can't move forward. Hachiman bluntly proposes faking the results. While it's dishonest, even Yukino admits it's the only quick fix that makes sense. When Hayato hears the situation, he decides to buy time by having his band perform another number. He even asks Yumiko for support. Though she refuses at first, she eventually agrees after seeing how serious he island. They now have 10 minutes to locate Minami. Yukino immediately calls Haruno backstage. Haruno is surprised, saying it's the first time her sister has ever asked her for help. She happily accepts, but Yukino reminds her that this isn't for her sake, it's for the committee. She adds that she doesn't take favors lightly, but if Haruno helps, she'll consider it a debt. Hachiman quietly admires how Yukino handled the request. Yukino then gathers a backup band. She asks Yui to take lead vocals, Shizuka to play guitar, and Meguri to cover piano. Yui is thrilled to finally be asked directly by Yukino and agrees right away. With that settled, Hachiman heads off to track down Minami, carrying Yukino's trust with him. After searching, he narrows her possible hiding spot to the roof. Sure enough, he finds Minami sitting alone. He tells her that the closing ceremony is being delayed because of her absence. Angry and embarrassed, Minami snaps that Yukino should take over instead, but Hachiman calmly reminds her that she's the only one with the official voting results. Minami shoves the results at him, telling him to just deliver them himself. Instead of leaving, Hachiman stays put. He explains that Yukino specifically trusted him to bring Minami back, not just the papers. Standing there on the rooftop, he takes a deep breath, carefully choosing his words before speaking. Just as Hachiman is about to continue, Hayato and the others arrive on the rooftop. They calmly encourage Minami to return with them. For a moment, she seems ready to go, but then admits she still feels unfit for the role, calling herself useless. Hachiman decides to push her in his own harsh way. He tells her bluntly that she is terrible at the job and only wanted comfort instead of responsibility. He adds that what she really wanted was to be like Yukino, respected and depended on, when in truth, she isn't on that level. His cold words hit hard, making Minami shrink further. Unable to listen any longer, Hayato grabs Hachiman by the collar and shoves him against the wall. The girls quickly step in, telling Hayato to stop and leaving with Minami. As they walk off, they glare at Hachiman, blaming him for making things worse. Hayato lingers for a moment. He asks Hachiman why he always chooses such a cruel method, but gets no real answer. Shaking his head, he leaves as well, leaving Hachiman alone. Hachiman slumps to the ground, sitting quietly while the distant sound of music echoes from the auditorium. Yui and the others are on stage, performing to buy more time. When their set finishes, Minami gathers the courage to step up in front of the audience. Though nervous and shaky, she gives her speech, then breaks down in tears backstage. Everyone whispers that Hachiman is to blame, saying his words pushed her to the edge. But just then, Haruno appears. She praises him in her sly way, saying his role as the villain was exactly what pushed Minami to act, even if it hurt. After she leaves, Shizuka walks over and gently places a hand on his cheek. She softly tells him that he doesn't need to carry pain alone or destroy himself just to help others. Hachiman brushes it off, saying it doesn't bother him, but Shizuka calmly replies that watching him suffer does hurt the people who care about him. That evening, Hachiman heads to the clubroom and finds Yukino already seated. She looks at him and asks how it feels, knowing everyone dislikes him. Without hesitation, he says it feels great because at least it means people noticed him. They trade a few sarcastic comments until Yukino mentions she came to write her festival report. Hachiman replies he came for the same reason. She jokes that great minds think alike, but he cuts her off, saying they're nothing alike at all. After a pause, he asks if she'd ever consider being his friend. Yukino turns him down immediately, saying the idea is impossible. Just then, Yui enters, inviting them to the festival after-party. Hachiman refuses, knowing he's not welcome after everything that happened. In the end, Yui decides not to go either and stays with them in the clubroom. As they sit together, Hachiman reflects that life can't be restarted once a moment passes. It's gone forever. Even small, ordinary times, like sitting in the service club, might one day feel important once they're only memories. A few days later, the club receives an email request. Someone wants to make the upcoming sports festival more exciting since it will be their last before graduation. Reading it makes all three think about their own feelings toward the event. Yukino admits she's never enjoyed sports festivals. Yui quickly agrees, saying she's terrible at athletics anyway. Hachiman joins in, saying the same. While they're talking, the door swings open and Meguri, the student council president, bursts in with her usual cheerful energy. She surprises them by revealing that she was the one who sent the request. She explains that after seeing how lively the cultural festival turned out, she wants the sports festival to reach that same level of excitement. As she's talking, Meguri suddenly pauses and looks at Hachiman, struggling to remember who he island. Yukino immediately seizes the chance to tease him, calling him so forgettable that even the president can't recall his name. Hachiman scowls at the jab, but before he can complain, Meguri snaps her fingers and says she remembers he was the one who did a lot of work behind the scenes during the cultural festival. After the compliments are over, Meguri admits she's sick of the same dull sports festivals and asks the service club to liven things up. The three agree, and she takes them to a planning meeting where Shizuka is already waiting. It turns out she was the one who told Meguri to contact them in the first place. The committee begins throwing out suggestions, but Shizuka shoots down every single one, saying they won't work. Frustrated, Hachiman decides to call in some unconventional help. He invites Zaimokuza and Hina, figuring their strange ideas might spark something interesting. With everyone involved, the group starts preparing for the big day. When the festival finally arrives, the girls' events begin. Thanks to Saika, who designed playful costumes, the atmosphere is full of laughter and excitement. After lots of energy and effort, the red team ends up winning the girls' competition, leaving everyone in high spirits. Next comes the boys' pole toppling match. The teams are divided into red and white, with Hayato leading white and Saika leading red. Hachiman and Zaimakuza, both on the red side, hatch a sneaky plan. Hachiman will act as bait to draw the opponents, while Zaimakuza sneaks past the chaos and pushes over the rival team's pole. The strategy works perfectly, and the red team bursts into cheers. But the celebration doesn't last long. The judges disqualify them for foul play. Despite the setback, sitting together, they reflect on everything that happened. Even though things didn't go smoothly, they all agree it was one of the most memorable festivals they've been part of. With lighter moods and smiles, the three begin chatting about what they might plan next, maybe a clapping session together. And that's it for today's video. Guys, watch the following video, and I will see you in the next one.